think mathematics is the same. It's practical. It's not just about reading and spending time in your books. It's also about doing, spotting patterns around you, creating patterns of your own. It's okay to be who you are, and you don't need to put so much time and energy and stress into trying to be someone else. But sharing knowledge with the people around you, being curious to understand why things are the way that they are, that's the heart of being a great teacher, and anyone can do that anywhere they are.
Hello, and welcome to Kids Explore Careers. My name is Aveline. Today I'm excited to introduce Mr. Eddie Wu. Mr. Wu is a math teacher from Australia who's known all around the world for making math fun and easy to understand. He started something called WooTube, where he shares his math lessons online. Now millions of people watch and learn from him. He's also written books, been named Australia's local hero, and helped teachers and students everywhere believe that math is for everyone. Thank you for speaking with me, Mr. Wu.
Aveline, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My first question is, when you were little, what kinds of things did you love doing?
When I was little, and in fact, even now as a slightly bigger person, I loved learning about everything around me. When you're a young child, I think one of the most normal things to do is to always ask why. Why is the sky blue? Why are rainbows round? Why are tree branches the funny shape that they are? And I've always done that, and I kind of still do that now. So that was the kind of kid that I was when I was younger, very inquisitive, very curious.
Did you ever think you would up to be a math teacher?
I didn't predict that this is what would happen. And when I was little, thought about becoming a firefighter or an aircraft pilot. Turns out that neither of those were a good fit for me in particular because number one, I have chronic asthma, which makes it hard to breathe sometimes and will make it extra hard to breathe if I went into a fire with lots of smoke. And you might be able to tell by looking at my face, I wear glasses. And it turns out you need to have really good eyesight if you want to be a pilot. So that's fair. You don't want to crash into things by accident. So I didn't go down either of those paths. And I think that when I became a teacher, a lot of the people around me kind of scratched their heads a little bit. It wasn't a very common thing to pursue at the school that I went to. I had lots of friends who became doctors and engineers and lawyers. So I was a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, like some people say, but I've never looked back since I started.
I heard you used to love English and history more than math. What changed your mind?
I still love English and history a lot, and I actually think that the stories in English and history and my love of that has helped me become a certain kind of mathematics teacher. But to your question, Aveline, about what changed my mind, I think there are probably two things. Number one, I had someone challenge me. When I went to go and become a teacher, I lined up and I said, this is the kind of teacher I'd like to be. And they said, look, that's fine if that's what you want to do, but you need to be aware that actually the world is in desperate shortage in most parts of the world anyway, for mathematics teachers. We're not very common, certainly, especially given that mathematics is a subject that almost everyone learns, and that means you need a lot of teachers for it. And so I was challenged to not just become a teacher for what I wanted, but also to help serve the needs of other people. So that was the first reason. And then the second reason that sort of has led me even further down this track is actually people just like you, Aveline. I love seeing how mathematics empowers young people. And I love seeing the sparkle in someone's eye when something makes sense for the first time. So I would say it's all of the young people who I've gotten to teach down the years who've helped me fall in love with mathematics as a subject.
What did you study or learn to become a teacher? And what made you say, yes, I want to become a math teacher?
Hmm. The particular thing I studied at university here in Australia. It's called a Bachelor of Education, which is a very funny, official sounding name. But it was basically 4 years where I learned all about what is teaching about, what are schools, how do they best function. Even though a lot of us have been to school growing up, not everyone, but most of us. You might think, oh, I know how school works. I've attended school, I've had a teacher, I've had one for many years. But in the same way that, for example, you can go to a restaurant and have a delicious meal and still not really understand what it's like to be a chef or a waiter or a waitress. There's a lot of skill that's kind of and knowledge that's hidden in the background. I found it was similar with schools and teachers. So that's kind of what I learned at university. And in terms of, why I decided to accept that challenge, I think it was really about asking myself the question, why do I do what I do? Why does anyone do what they do? Whatever it is that you choose, you're exploring all of these different careers. I hope that it's something that you enjoy and you're passionate about, but I hope it's also something that you can use to help other people. And for me, that drive and that impulse is what led me to go sort of jump and take this sort of leap of faith to do something that wasn't my original plan, but I was very happy to take the encouragement to do something different.
What's your favorite part about being a teacher?
Hmm. This is a really hard question for me to answer, Aveline, because there are so many different things that I enjoy, but I have to pick out like the top one off of the list is that I get to make a difference in the lives of the children and the young people who I get to work with. And that never gets old, even though, the life of a teacher can be, you might imagine that it's kind of monotonous and the same because, the bells always go at the same time. And the things that I teach, the syllabus, it's a very consistent thing over time, especially for something like mathematics. But every student who I meet is different. And the difference I get to make in their lives is unique. And that's a huge privilege, and it never gets old to me. That's my favorite part.
What's the hardest or trickiest part about teaching?
Hmm. The hardest part about teaching is kind of related to the previous question you answered, which is that at least here in Australia, the average high school teacher has about 150 students every single year. That's a lot of people who you have to get to know and to teach and to give time and care and attention to. And what I would probably say is all throughout my time as a teacher, all throughout my career as a teacher, I've never felt like I had enough time to give to every student. I've got those 30 students in front of me at a time, and I get to teach them for an hour. If you want to think about it that way, 30 students, 60 minutes, that's about 2 minutes per student, which is really, really fast. Bless you. So I have a real struggle with giving people as much time as I want to. I think that's the hardest challenge about being a teacher.
What's something surprising or funny about being a teacher that most people don't know?
Hmm. Uh, Surprising or funny? I would say that for me anyway, I'm going to just say this personally, okay? This may not be true for every teacher out there. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not, but this is true for me, and I know it's true for a lot of other teachers I've worked with. When you have to be a teacher, one of the things that you have to learn, one of the skills you have to learn is how to guide and encourage the behavior of children. And not just like teaching them how to understand something, but also teaching them how to behave. And, being still and quiet and paying attention when maybe that's not your instinct, or working on something when it's difficult and not easy, right? And what that means is if a student is doing something that they're perhaps not supposed to be doing, I, as the teacher, have the responsibility of saying, hey, okay, this is not what you should be doing. You should be doing something different. And, I need to be quite stern. And sometimes I need to project, anger or displeasure at a student doing that. And often, actually, I find it very unnatural to do that because I'm a fairly laid back and casual person. So when I have to behave that way with students and discipline them, sometimes I have to kind of it's a little bit like acting in a play. Aveline, I don't know if you've ever been in like a play for school, or you've had to put on a character, a costume, that kind of thing, right? Sometimes you have to do that as a teacher, which is a bit funny, especially if you don't feel angry, but you have to kind of make it look like you are. So that's a little bit weird and surprising that I think most people wouldn't know that sometimes we as teachers have to be an actor and get in costume, as it were, to guide our students in the best way that they need.
You said that everybody is born with a math sense, like a secret superpower. How can kids grow that superpower?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question, Aveline, because it's something that in your question, you acknowledge that yes, we have this power, but it doesn't just kind of sit there and bubble away on its own. We have to take effort and time and attention to grow that power. So I would give you probably the biggest suggestion I have is to make sure that you treat mathematics kind of a little bit like playing a musical instrument or being able to cook a great meal or play a sport. These are the kinds of things where you can't just read about these things, you have to do them. They're practical. I have lots of cookbooks on my shelf at home I don't have a library or anything like that, but I love looking at them. The pictures are pretty. I love reading the recipe. But if I don't actually spend time in the kitchen cooking those meals, I'm not going to develop skill and knowledge and expertise as someone who can make food. So I think mathematics is the same. It's practical. It's not just about reading and spending time in your books. It's also about doing, spotting patterns around you, creating patterns of your own. I think that's a great way to grow in your mathematics superpower, like you said.
You've helped so many, you've helped so many people enjoy math. What's the secret to making it fun?
Hmm. Um, Look, I'm not sure what the answer to this question is, to be perfectly honest with you, Aveline, because I would love to say that I know exactly how the way that I teach helps people. But I actually have kind of instinctively learned the way that I taught by thinking what would help the person like me when I was younger. And I was someone who didn't understand mathematics quickly or automatically. I really need to struggle and understand something in a really simple way. Sometimes I need a metaphor or an analogy, like a picture that helps me understand the mathematics. And so all I'm trying to do is empathize with my students. And I've found that that's helpful. I don't know if that's the secret, but I think it's a big part of how I, in particular, teach my students.
I have one of your books with me, Eddie Wood's Magical Maths. Why did you write this book? And what do you hope kids will learn from the puzzles and games inside?
Aveline, I'm going to borrow an answer that I gave to a previous question, which is that, Aveline, the reason why I wrote that book is exactly for people like you. Uh, Eddie Wu's Magical Maths is the second book that I wrote. I wrote the first book, which is called It's a Number for World. And I wrote it for students, children who were a bit older than you, Aveline, and even for adults like me. And I wrote it, and it was a bit harder for young people to read. And I remember meeting many parents, and they said, "Do you have something for my kid is 5 or 6 or 7 or 10. Do you have something that they would love that will help them discover the joy of learning mathematics?" And that's why I wrote it. So I guess that kind of answers the other part of the question. I hope that it helps people love maths and see their part in it.
What's the mathematics growth team, and how are you helping teachers across Australia?
Oh, thanks for asking this question. The Mathematics Growth Team is a team that I lead and support. The reason why it exists is because I love visiting schools and running workshops and helping people love mathematics and become enthusiastic about it. But one of the things I learned after doing that for a little while was I'm only one person, and there's only so much I can achieve going around the country, and even around the world. I'm limited by being just one single human being, and so I created this team, and I hired people who have the same kind of vision to help others love mathematics and learn it well. And so that's what they do, and I support them to do that around the country that I live in Australia. I guess that for me. I love being part of something bigger than myself, and I feel it's a huge privilege to support that team and give them the opportunity to do what I'm doing as well.
Lots of kids today use programs like Dreambox, Excel, and Zern. How do you think they will change how we learn and teach math?
Learning is changing all the time. That is one of the most exciting things about it, that you never get bored if you're a teacher because, as you just mentioned, there are all kinds of new inventions and different kinds of tools that are helping us to help you learn better. What I would say is that mathematics and technology, for example, they've always had this kind of intertwined relationship because technology helps us do mathematics that would have been impossible if it was just my brain trying to think of it on my own. So I'm really excited for the kinds of skills and the different kinds of questions and problems you'll be able to answer and solve as you're growing up, because that'll be really different to your parents and to me. And we can't even imagine what those worlds will look like yet. But what I'm excited about is helping you discover them and kind of seeing what sort of world you will create when you learn with those tools.
Do you think AI will change how I learn and teach in the future?
AI is already changing the way that we learn, Aveline, and even though we're still quite early, I can think of two examples of how this is happening. Firstly, AI is a fantastic opportunity to have dialogue with something that can help us think and push our own questioning. It's a little bit like having a little buddy who you can have a chat with and a discussion with and pose questions to and have them pose questions to you that will help you do more thinking. So I love that. I also think that AI is going to help us create new kinds of mathematics that we don't know about yet and that we'll get to explore over time. And well, it's kind of like being, well, an explorer. That's the name of this show, isn't it? AI is a little bit like a spaceship or a submarine. It will allow us to go to new worlds that we haven't seen yet. No one's been there yet, so I don't know what that will look like, but it is exciting to find out what it'll be.
What's one habit that helps you stay inspired as a teacher?
I think a habit that I have, which I have seen others, I think I've learnt this from other people. It's that I really love to spend time understanding someone's story. So having this chat with you, Aveline, and getting to know you through your questions, and being curious and inquisitive about you, for me, doing that with all of my individual students helps me to feel like I'm not just preparing a lesson or marking a test, I'm actually helping an individual, another human just like me. So I would say that's probably one of the most important habits that I have, loving people and wanting to spend time with them, that has helped me to be an effective teacher.
You could go back in time and tell young Eddie one thing about teaching. What would it be?
Hmm. I think I would probably tell young Eddie that it's okay to be who you are, and you don't need to put so much time and energy and stress into trying to be someone else. I remember being a teacher and in my early years looking at people who were so expert and knew so much more than me, or were really gruff and strong and disciplinarian. And I thought, ooh, how can I be a teacher like that? And I felt quite nervous that I wasn't as good a teacher as other people, but I learned. I developed my own style and personality as a teacher. And so I would tell young Eddie, hey, grow up and be the person who you are, and don't be too worried and concerned and stressed about trying to be someone other than you.
How can families and communities help support teachers?
This is a lovely question. I'm really glad first that you're asking it because sometimes we forget that even though teachers are the main people during the day who are responsible for children's learning, actually teachers are partners with parents, carers, and community to help our young people learn. We're just one piece of the puzzle. So what I would say is probably the single biggest thing is be in communication with your child. I know that that's easier said than done. I think it can be challenging, especially as, you know, young people get older and move into adolescence. It's a natural thing for teenagers to want to form an independent life that is distinct from their parents, but distinct doesn't mean entirely separate or disconnected. It means that it has a life of its own, but it's still in a relationship. So I think maintaining that conversation and always being curious about, hey, what did you learn today? Or what things are you struggling with? Are there things you want to talk through? Being able to communicate well with young people, that's probably the most important thing that I would encourage.
What advice would you give to a kid like me who wants to teach one day?
Aveline, I would tell you, you can be a teacher right now, even though you probably have to wait to become an official teacher in a school because you've got to get all the qualifications and things like that. What I would say is that sharing knowledge with the people around you, being curious to understand why things are the way that they are, that's the heart of being a great teacher. And anyone can do that anywhere they are. And you can certainly do that right now. In fact, I kind of think you're already doing it. Having this interview is a great way to share your own learnings with the rest of the world. So, what I would say is go for it. Don't wait. Be a teacher exactly where you are right now.
Mr. Wu, thank you for your time and talking with me today. I hope you have a great week.
You too, Aveline. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, it's me, Aveline. I hope you had a fun time learning from Mr. Wu. It makes me want to keep growing my own math superpowers. If you want to learn more about Mr. Wu, his YouTube channel, teaching, or his books, check out the links in this video. And if you want to interview someone who inspires you, visit our website. Thanks so much for watching. Dream big, stay curious, and see you later.